Okay, so just popping in, getting everything, all the technology working. Oh, and while I do that, I think I've got our ending slide up instead of our beginning slide. Let me stop the share for a moment. So welcome everybody to the Spring Detox Club, and we'll get back to the right page so you don't see the whole presentation backwards. We'll, and we'll get going here in just a second. So yeah, good to be back today. This is an exciting day. I love all things spa, right? And it's kind of uh, one of the things that I love most about Ayurveda is the spa aspect of it, and what we what Ayurveda gifts to us from that. And so we have some great traditions, with some of these wisdom traditions that are now mainstream, and we're going to talk about that come from this, and they're all like part of the spring cleanse is to. I love this aspect of it probably more so than the food. I don't know. Food tends to have triggers to it, right? We get like triggered on food, and that's not what we want to have. We want to have our food be nourishing, stuff with that. So I love the recipes that we have in the spring cleanse. I think we've got some great ones coming in there that are nourishing and that we don't feel like we're missing out or anything. But I love the ritual aspect of the skin practices, right? That we get to do within the spring cleanse, within the spring detox. And because you know, our skin is such this largest, it's the place that we actually interact with the world, right? So we're taking in, we may not even realize it, but we're taking in everything through the skin, right? It's almost like the skin can breathe, right? And that everything that we get to expose to comes on our skin. And so it's something, and it is our protective, boundary against things coming in as well. And so some of the ideas from Ayurveda are completely mind-blowing when it comes to skin. So let's dive into this little spa day and our loving your skin day as we come into this. So it's all things skin today coming into that. Okay, so a little quote to inspire us as we get started. And that spring is just this lovely reminder of how beautiful spring or how beautiful change can be, right? Sometimes, and I think this is, a little bit counteractive to like kapha nature resists change, right? So that kapha nature is earthy, it's earth and water. When we mix earth and water together, we get mud, it gets sticky, it's gooey. This is one of the beautiful parts of our kapha side is it's this cohesiveness, it's this glue, it's kind of the glue that holds everything together. And if you think about your, friends who might be kaphas, or if you're a kapha, people just gravitate towards you. There's this lovely connection, but it is hard to get moving. They resist change, right? So we always kind of joke in terms of the doshas that a pitta is the person who, when they decorate the house, they just know everything has its perfect place and that's just where it is. And a vata is always changing the furniture around, and a kapha just like there's no move, there's just no change, right? It's just this is the way it's going to be, right? Just resisting that anything. But once a kapha gets moving, it's just you can't. They're unstoppable, right? So it's beautiful in that regard. And once your kapha side gets going, so it's this embracing this aspect of change because spring is all about change, right? So it's like that opposite, that flip side of kapha nature. So we can talk about the shadow side and the other side coming in. Okay, so let's get rolling. What are we going to talk about today? So basically, yesterday we talked about our supports, our essential oils and stuff going in you, and what our different cleanse supports are for that, and what we're going to take in internally. And we talked about around you and working on, diffusing things and smudging our home and doing that cleansing and that aspect. And so today is all about on you, right? And so the different ways that we are supporting our cleanse topically. So the other word that we'll often hear is like um, internal aromatic. Internal, external. No, internal aromatic was our topics for last days, and then topical is what we talk about when we're using them on the surface of our skin. Okay, so we're going to talk about some of the topical cleanse supports and what we can do for that, and we're also going to talk about some of these cleansing practices that come in from Ayurveda within that. And then if we have time, we're going to talk a little bit about essential oils for detox yoga. That could be a whole like little separate little class in and of itself, but we'll kind of dabble into some of those favorites to tap into that, because, and it can be yoga and it can be whatever your movement practice is. The same principles will apply to that. We'll talk about arranging that as well. Okay, so next up we have, is this for you, right? Just noticing, is this for you? And I love today's topic because sometimes essential oils are a little bit woo-woo, and people aren't as comfortable. There's a lot of thought stream out there that we should never take essential oils internally, right? And that came from a really good source, and that they are very pure potential. And so we want to be mindful of how much we're taking internally, and making sure that that is acceptable, and, or, anything in excess. So Ayurveda has this principle that you have, like you have food, or you have things that you take as food, as nourishment, you have things you take as medicine, and then you have the extreme where things are toxic to us. And that is the same of anything that we have in nature, right? So that even water in excess is toxic to us, right? So anything that we do in excess is toxic to us. So we want to be mindful of the amounts that we're taking in, and we're not overdoing things. We're getting too much within there. And so the topical application is sometimes accessible, or a bit more like a first stepping point if you're new to essential oils and you're like, I'm not sure that I can do that other stuff, but this is a way that you can topically support through that. And so again, this is a program that's designed to give you ideas, to inspire your cleanse if you're a cleanse guru, and it's also really geared to those as well who are just starting on this path, of this wellness path, of stepping into, do I need this? What is this all about? And how can I bring this into my life? Okay, and so popping in, so talking about loving your skin, and all about that. And your skin is your largest organ, right? And so it is the largest thing we have in our body. And so often we just completely disregard it, right? But it is on that protection mechanism we talked about at the beginning there. It is our it holds us all together. It holds us in, right? But it is also our early warning signs. So you can tell what's going on by what's erupting on your skin and what's going on in there for you. So it's just a matter of, how are we going to nourish this? How can we take care of this to the ultimate, or to the best of our abilities? Okay, so one of my favorite ways of doing this, I just realized I don't have a slide for this, so I'm going to stop my share just for a moment. Before we start into the cleansing practices and things like that, let's just talk about the oils that we're going to use during a cleanse on our skin topically, and where you would put them. So one of the major cleanse places for us is the liver, right? And so the liver, let's see if I can get myself up enough or far away from the camera you can see. Your liver's on the right side of your body, right? So it's just kind of tucked in here under the rib cage, under the diaphragm. It's right in that area. So our livers are here, and our kidneys are back here. This is another place that we get rid of things from, right? So we're processing both sides of that. And so if I can come up with my tiptoes, this is the area that we're going to rub that love on, right? When we talk about some of our liver support oils, they're going right here and then back in behind us. One of my favorites for this, and just see if I have it handy here, is the Zendocrine blend. So this is one of my favorite cleanse blends that we have, because it's got everything in it, right? So when we're talking cleanse, we're looking at citruses. So citruses help the body, help that liver produce a glutathione. So when we rub something topically on that particular, like right close to that organ, we are looking to a targeted approach, right? We're going to talk later about like using oils all over our body and our whole skin kind of technique. But when we want to target in one area, we can put that here. So we take it internally for stomach and getting it inside the body, but this is another access point we have. So for example, if you've ever had a stomach ache or something going on with your belly, right? So, and if it's super acute, you might be looking at any way that you can do this, right? So we can take something internally, and so that, and I almost use the skin again on that. You can take a drop in your mouth, or I put it on my hand and lick it in, right, is another way to do that. But you can rub it on your belly, right? And so rubbing it right into that support. So the systemic, the going inside, might be the quickest hit, but this can also be a really good soothing support, especially if you've got an upset stomach and you can't really take anything internally at the moment. Having that external support helps with that. So that's one way, like a way you can kind of see it working in action, because that's one of those acute things. We don't necessarily notice when our liver like kicks in and starts working. We don't get that instant response, but it does that same principle. And the same principle applies when we're looking at pain management, right? So if there is something that's hurting or aching within our body, we're going to try to get it as close as possible to that area. It's not always possible, right, to do that. And because we're like wearing clothes or whatever, we can't always reach those areas, and so we can put it on somewhere else and it will seep in. It just takes longer to go. So we're just trying to get that more, you know, part of it is that quicker, getting it as close to the source as possible type thing. The other aspect is the intentionality. And just having that intention of what is this going to support adds another layer of amplification to the practices that you do, right? Okay, so some of the oils that we're going to use for that would be the Zendocrine blend. And you can actually, if you don't have that one, you can kind of like look at, okay, what's in there on its own. And so that's our citruses. That's our geranium oil is another beautiful one for cleansing. We have our juniper is in that. We have rosemary is in that, and we have cilantro. And so those are kind of like the top 5 oils that we're going to look at for cleansing. I'm trying to think if there's any others that come into play. Those would be like the top ones that I would be using for liver support on that. Other areas of, if you're looking at supporting digestion in general, which is quite often what we're doing for cleansing, would be the Zenjast blend or a fennel or a peppermint, and rubbing that over that area of your abdomen as well. It can be super helpful on that aspect. Sometimes we're going to have some skin eruptions or things happening, right? And that's maybe why you're doing the cleanse. Or if you're sometimes if we're cleansing too quickly and our channels aren't open enough, you can start to see these things coming through on the skin. And that's where something like a lavender or some of our florals can be super helpful and supportive in that. And you can choose to, if we put oils on meat, the idea is the molecule size is smaller, they could slip through systemically into the body. But if you put them on diluted, they're going to stay in the area longer. So it's a matter of, what type of target support do you want to have with that? And so when we're talking dilution, and again, just to see if I have a roller bottle handy, or we've got some on my desk, got everything within reach here, right? And so typically I will put like a little label on it and I'll write what I put. And I don't always do this, but it is really handy when you do to write what you put in your roller bottle, because once you set it down and a week later you go pick it up and it's like, I have no idea what this was for, right? But I'm going to show you a really good trick on this one of what to do with these roller bottles afterwards if you don't use it all up. But you can place your oils in your roller bottle and then top it up. We like to use fractionated coconut oil. You can use any oil on your skin. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But the fractionated coconut oil, because it has been heat treated slightly, it does not go rancid, and so it stays in your oil. That carrier oil is not going to be a cause of your other oils to go bad. We're super, super lucky with the doTERRA blends doTERRA oils, that they don't have any impurities in there. And that's where when people see their oils going bad, that's typically because there's been something in there or they've been stored in heat. Otherwise, they do last a long, long time in that regard. Okay, so that's kind of some of those topical areas and what we can do for support within that. And so we have the skin areas, we have the liver support, we have the kidney support rubbing kind of into that area, and the digestive support are the main ones for that. Okay, so let's go back into screen share and let's dive into some of these practices for loving our skin. Okay, so one of the ones that comes up during spring cleansing in particular, because it's really good for Kapha body types. Kaphas tend to have moist and a little bit like cool oiliness to their skin. So not so Pittas will be more oily in flavor on their skin, and Vatas can be quite dry. So there's a word of caution on dry brushing if your primary dosha is Vata. Okay, so I might do this as a cleanse practice. I don't do this on a regular practice because the dry brushing can be quite irritating for the nervous system. So if you are that way inclined, this may not be an everyday practice for you, but it might be something to step into for the cleanse, just to experience that reset. And what we're trying to do, it's like sloughing off of the skin and moving that, but it's also bringing circulation. So anytime we touch an area, just like that intentionality where we're putting the oils, we are bringing more blood flow there. We're bringing all these things. And so this active kind of brushing motion on the skin, that stimulation on the skin is going to bring more blood flow and healing and all that great stuff that comes along with that. So with your dry brushing, you can amplify this practice by just putting a couple of drops of oil on your dry brush, right? With the essential oils. And so great ones to do that, probably the number one choice of that would be the Smart and Sassy, we call it in Canada, or Slim and Sassy in the US blend. This is another good cleanse support oil, just like this endocrine. It is what it's affectionately known as the anti-craving oil, because it helps kind of stop those instances of craving. But part of what it's doing is giving us what we need when we're reaching for food as a comfort food. We're getting it instead from the dopamine hit we get from this little sunshine blend, right? So it's a mixture of citruses and peppermints. So it's energizing, it's alerting, all great things to have within that complex. Grapefruit is in that blend, and that's one of the ones I would have on here. Is endocrine, absolutely, is a really good cleanse support on there. And all those any of those cleanse oils that we talked about topically would be good in here. But geranium is another lovely one. Has a nice spa-like essence to it and is super supportive for skin. Citrus bloom is a blend that is another great one for this. I was just kind of looking at this one today. It's a lovely little blend, a good aspect for tapping into dry brushing. Now we do have a caveat on here. If you notice, a lot of these oils and blends have citruses in them. So this is springtime in where I am at, and our sun is not very high in the sky. So there's a lower or very low risk of sun sensitivity in this season. But if you are someplace where the sun has more intensity to it, you may not want to put citruses on your skin in this season, right? So just kind of noticing when you're doing this practice and what you're using. So in that case, you might be looking for something along the lines of the balance, the lavender, the lemongrass is another great one for skin support, ligament support. It does a lot of great stuff within that, and just overall cleansing of the body energetically and physically on that aspect. So those are some good, there's lots of oils that we could tap into, but those would be some of my favorites to tap into for that practice, okay? Dry brushing is something that you might do before you go in the shower. It's a good time to do that, just kind of sloughing off the skin, and then you're gonna go and rinse off after that. And this is my like personal favorite. Because dry brushing isn't as successful for me, it is a little bit aggravating on the skin. If you tend to have dry skin, and I live in a very, very dry climate, and I used to have like those alligator legs, right? That you'd put your yoga pants on and they would come off white on the inside because they were just, like, it's pretty disgusting, really, when you think about it. But there's the reality of living in a dry place and having a dry personality, right? And until I discovered oil massage. And the other thing that oil massage gifts us in this practice, and in Ayurveda, we call it abhyanga, in this practice is just nourishing your skin on so many different levels. Because when you use soap, you are taking away your body's primary defense mechanism, right? This is your alerting, your alerting warning bells. This is like your first defense, your front line of defense. When you use soap, you just wipe that all away because your body has natural oils on it, right? Oil and water don't mix. And so you have these water-based soaps that are coming on there, and it's stripping away that oil layer. And now your body has to replenish that, right? It's taking extra work to replenish that. I was chatting with some friends last night, and we have this difference in continentals and what different continents and what practices we have, right? So here in North America, we tend to grocery shop once a week, and we have a shower every day. Whereas in Europe, they would, grocery shop every day and have a shower once a week, right? And so that practice is less damaging on your skin, right? In terms of that. However, if you don't want to go to the once a week shower, this is going to be your saving grace. So when you use oil instead of soap, so And it's like took me a long time to, step into this practice. And as soon as I did, it was like, what have I been missing all my life, right? So when you use oil on your skin, so imagine this, instead of soap, you use oil, rubbing, lovingly massaging oil in. Oil is going to lift the impurities away. So it's going to lift the dirt away. And then you take a washcloth and you're going to scrub it off after that. But you're replenishing your skin's barrier instead of stripping it away. So you're adding to your body's defense system instead of detracting from it, or going against that kind of natural support. Okay. So it's like the ultimate self love. The word in Sanskrit for oil is sneha. So every word in Sanskrit, which is the ancient language, it's not really a spoken language anymore. It's kind of like Latin, and that it's not really widely spoken anymore, but it is the ancient language from the Vedic tradition, so the precursor to the Indian continent, right? Of what's going on there, or the Indian dialect. Um, and so each word in Sanskrit has many different meanings. It's like the peeling of the onion, right? And I always think of Shrek when I think about it, the peeling of the onion from that movie. I'll have to go rewatch that again. It was quite funny. But each time you roll it back, you get just to a deeper layer or a different layer. So the word on the outside for sneha is oil. And then as you roll it deeper, it's love. So oil is the same as love. So we've tended to have, I think it's shifting now, that we have this aversion to oil in our culture, that it's like, ooh, oily, not so good. But in reality, we need oil, right? We need oil on us. We need some oil in us. It's amazing for brain health and joint health and all of those things. And definitely we need it on us for this particular practice. The oil that you'll use, we call it a carrier oil as opposed to the essential oil. So the carrier oil can be any oil that you would eat. So anything you're going to put in you, you can put on you. Right? I want you to encourage you to think of these as the same thing, in terms of that. And so sometimes we even look at, lower quality oils. Well, I don't want to take them internally, but I can put it on my skin. And my reaction to that would be, I wouldn't even do that, right? I wouldn't even diffuse it in my area if it's not a pure product, right? But because we're taking it in so many different ways, it is still coming in us. So you're going to use a cold pressed oil, ideally, or an organic oil. You're going to splurge a little bit on this, but you can get some, bigger bottles of some really good quality oils in that. There's no necessarily wrong oil to pick. One I wouldn't tap into is, and the one that's typically used actually is sesame oil, historically within Ayurveda. Sesame oil comes in its raw state and it comes in a toasted state. So the one I would not use is the toasted sesame oil, or you will smell like food, right? You will. It's not a pleasant one. You can't really mask that with your essential oils very well. Some of the oils do have more of a scent to them, like some olive oils can be scented in nature. Olive oil is a beautiful oil to use, but it has a scent to it. I love to use either the sesame oil that's not toasted, or if you can find it, it's sometimes difficult to find. Avocado oil is a beautiful one for all doshas. This is one where it does change a little bit depending on what your dosha is, depending on what the season is, which you can step into. But grapeseed oil is another light one that's really good for kaphas and in the summer season, that type of thing. So you might use a thicker, more nourishing oil in the winter season, and a lighter oil in nature in the summer season. Coconut oil is one that often gets suggested for this. Where I live, coconut oil is a solid for most times of the year, and it is a solid at the temperature um, of the pipes in the ground, right? So my husband being a civil engineer, when you think about these things, when it solidifies down in those pipes, it is going to cause a problem in your plumbing. So that is not one that we typically step into in Canada. But if you live in a warmer location, then that is definitely a beautiful oil to use. There's lots of benefits from the coconut oil within that, but just it's not one that we use in this quantity to put down our drains in Canada typically. Fractionated coconut oil is okay to use. I love to use that one sometimes on my face. Sometimes I'll use it as my travel oil because we get it from doTERRA. It comes in a bottle that seals pretty well. I still put it in a plastic bag when I'm traveling, but it does seal pretty well. Um, as opposed to like oil has this tendency to get out of anything. So as you travel with it, it will get out of the container. So you have to just watch that aspect. So I will just take my fractionated coconut oil, I will take my essential oils, and I will mix them together in my hand when I'm traveling just to make it easier on that regard. Okay, so then what you're going to do is you're going to take your carrier oil. And actually, first, before you put your carrier oil, this is the example of what a pump that I might use in there. And this is actually my little pump on the picture. They last forever. Really, it's really nice. And you're going to add your essential oils in, and then we fill it up just about to the top, not totally the top, so enough that it's not going to spill over when you put your pump bottle in. I love using this type of a pump because I can do it one-handed and be rubbing it in. It's super, super handy to use in that condition. This is a glass bottle. If you have kids in your household and your bathroom is not a safe place for glass, you may want to step into a plastic that is a high quality plastic, and that you can do that as well. Okay, so some of the oils that I like to use, and in this, so this is I'm trying to remember, I think this is a 60 ml. I'm trying to think if this is about a one, not even a cup, 120 ml. Okay, I'm gonna have to figure that out. If this is 15, this is about 120 in terms of the I'll double check that and I'll put it in the notes for our group as to my mind is blanking on the size of this. I normally have this like off the top of my head, but not this morning. And so in this size of bottle though, I will put between 20 and 30 drops of essential oil to carrier oil. That's going to be the mixture on that. And I'm preparing some dosha specific blends that we'll be using within the Flourish Spring Cleanse this year. So if you're joining us for that, you'll get those recipes in there. But some of my favorites to use in this during a cleanse season would be endocrine. So I love using the blends because they're already kind of pre-blended. You don't really have to add anything else to it. It can be super easy. Sometimes I will add a little extra support. So I might take this endocrine and I might add a little of copaiba to that, right, for a little bit of more joint support. Or I might take this endocrine and add a little bit extra geranium. It's already geranium in there, but I might add a little extra bergamot or something like that. Could be quite nice in that blend. And they're the Smart and Sassy. Balance is another one of my favorites. I love mixing balance and lemongrass, mostly balance and just a hint of lemongrass to that. Aroma Touch is the massage blend. And I just love Aroma Touch Ayurvedically. The oils that are in that are just so replenishing and nourishing. So that's another one of my favorites. But in the spring, Citrus Bloom is another one. And actually, the Citrus Bloom blend is not photosensitive. Okay, so the individual citrus oils are, when they made the Citrus Bloom blend, they've used oils that were processed in a different format so that it is not photosensitive, which is a super powerful thing for us to tap into for our oil massage in the summer season, right? So that's a handy little fact on that one. And I'm gonna, so there's definitely one to work that we want to double check before you go in the full song with Citrus Bloom in there. As I'm thinking of that, it's typically one that I would use as my evening. I'm still, erring on that caution side on that, but it is. I know I've heard that last year. I think probably last year Mother's Day era when we had that blend come out again, and we got it for real. Okay, so that's some ideas on the oil massage. Step into that. Test it out, try it out. Again, the spring cleanse is a great time to experiment with new things, to try some different things. It kind of gives us that license to be a little bit different, a little bit, also gives us a license to love on ourselves a little bit more, to take a little bit more time for ourselves. That's what I'd encourage everybody to do within their cleanse, is to have a bit more of that inward time, that reflection time. So, and what you would do with this is you're going to put it on your body, and then you hop in the shower. Don't actually hop or jump the shower because your feet might be slippery. But you go in the shower, you're going to wipe it off with a washcloth. Use old washcloths. Do not buy expensive washcloths anymore, because those my oil bottle might last forever, but the washcloths don't. And so after a month or two, after washing and stuff, you will want to get new ones, right? In terms of that, they will pick up some oil residue in there. And then you come out and you towel yourself off. So you have now given yourself 3 sets of loving touch every time you have your shower. So that's a beautiful little way to step into that. Okay. Lots of chatting, talking as fast as I can to get as much information in for you guys as possible. Yoga. So we talked last time about the yoga, what we're going to do, and it's lots of heart opening, especially in the spring, because we want to be opening up this area of the lungs, which is the Kapha primary seat. We're talking this morning on our daily essentials group call, or my little Ayurveda group program that we do, and the area for that, the primary place for the Kapha dosha is the lungs, right? And so we want to open that up. So lots of good heart openers, our breath work practices, that type of thing. Twists are amazing for our digestive system and getting things. And we're looking at, think of twists like when you're going to roll out your washcloth, right? And you're going to rinse it out. That's the same thing we want to be doing with our organs. We want to stimulate them. We want to get them moving. We want to give them a little extra love and attention through that, right? And just lots of movement in general, big movements. We want to be opening up and feeling that energy going through your body. Then hip openers. And the hips tend to be another place that we store some junk. So we want to be releasing that stuff out of there for sure. Okay, so my oils for doing this, definitely stepping into the deep blue, right? So any exercise movement orientation that we're going to do, deep blue before and after, right? So it helps us to ease into it. You might even get a little bit deeper into your yoga poses using that. You can feel it. I love the rub aspect for this because you can kind of feel it tingling in there and it stays on the body longer. So I will often put the deep blue on my low back. That tends to be my crux point as a Vata. That's where things tend to go wrong for me. But placing it in that area that you need to release. And so before you do your hip openers and things like that, placing and then in those areas, shoulders might be another great spot for that. Your citrus oils and setting the intention. So I love to use an oil. So even before I put the deep blue on, I will put an oil on just to set the intention for my practice. So during cleanse time, that might be your endocrine, right? And just to breathe that in and take that into your space. It might be a citrus oil, stepping into that beauty of spring. The citrus bloom blend that's just coming back out again is a lovely one for you for using this as well. So setting that intention, taking those oils we talked about at the beginning of the class over your liver. So before you go into twists, putting that oil on the liver support, on the kidneys, any of those oils for digestion on your belly is a great one for that as well. Grounding your practice with a balance blend, right? So I just love the idea of that intentionality of putting balance on my feet before I do any balance poses or before doing any standing poses, to give you that sense of groundedness and connectedness and feel rooted, feel connected to nature. It's kind of like, well, balance is a blend of trees and flowers, actually. So it's got like those roots, and it's got some roots and there's some vetiver in there too. So it's got those roots, it's got the trunk, and then it's got those flowers, that fruit. So it's kind of bringing us into all those stages of nature within that. So it's got that softness of the flowers coming in as well. And then serenity can be used either to end your practice, to go deeper into your shavasana, or if you've got like an agitated day or you've got a lot going on, maybe it's the first, maybe you've set your intention with serenity at the beginning, and you're using that to tap in. So those are a couple ways that I love to do that. Other places, so the one that's not on here actually probably should be for the spray is Easy Air. That's or the Breathe or Easy Air blend. Or even just a simple peppermint over the heart space. So kind of tapping into that lungs area is another great place to put any of these oils for your yoga practice. But starting that before your breath work, before your sun salutations, so you're using your body as that diffuser in this case. So a beautiful way to tap into that. If you do yoga, typically, but you haven't tried oils, again, use the cleanse as your way to do that. If you're not quite into yoga, not doing that, use this as your like kickstart. You remind your legs, oh, I'm gonna experiment with a pose or two, even a tree pose for as your one pose a day for your cleanse, for your spring cleanse, and just feel that lifting, that the energy that the trees are getting right now in nature, drawing that sap up and that essence and unfurling out into into your branches and into your leaves can be a beautiful just way to connect with yourself, and you get that hip opening and opening all through the body. So that would be, if you only did one pose, probably be tree for me during the cleanse. Okay, so we talked about this last day as well, but just stepping in, we've had a little twist come in this particular week with doTERRA, in that they have BOGOs that have just started today and running all this week. So we've got some extra little supports that we can add into here, and I will next week. We just announced. I'm just kind of reviewing that into what oils do we have that are going to be good cleanse supports. The citrus bloom that you get with the BOGO box is definitely a really good spring cleanse oil and intention setting one coming into that. But so the Healthy Habits kit is still the greatest place, I think, to get started with the oils, because you get the supplements with it. Because the oils without that nutritional foundation tend to be band-aids. They're not going to work as well if they don't have anything to work with. Right. So I still love this kit, and for this is what we'll be using for the cleanse, tapping into that. But you can also be adding in one of those daily supports from the BOGOs, coming in as you make your choices. So as of tomorrow, we can tap into the different cleanse oil, the pairs. They'll all be available tomorrow. So today you can get the whole BOGO box, which is an incredible value, incredible way to get a lot of free oils at once, and a great way to expand your collection quickly. And but as of tomorrow, we can tap into the individual dual pairs. So there'll be a buy one get one. It's not a typical buy one get one. You don't get the same thing. You buy one and you get something different. So I love that, because a bottle of oil, I don't know if it lasts for a long time. Right. So most of them do. Some of them I go through like water in my house, but some of them last for a long time. And so you don't necessarily need two of the same thing all the time. If you do have a lot of one, that's where this kind of comes into play. And I was going to show you my little trick. If you have these little random roller bottles that you've made up at one point in time, you don't remember what it's for, don't just like get rid of the oil, because it's super valuable and super helpful. Use it as the base for add it to whatever you use in your oil massage bottle, right? So it's a great way to use that. Or you can add them to Epsom salts. Epsom salts is another really good cleanse practice for our skin that we can tap into on that one as well. We have every day in the Flourish Spring Cleanse, there's a different focus or a different thing we kind of play with or step into. And the bath is definitely always a favorite that ends up being more than just a one-day thing for many of us in the cleanse. Okay, so that's kind of if you're new to doTERRA, stepping into that. If you are the pro, look at taking it a step deeper with the cleanse kit. And I was looking in my back office yesterday, and I do believe the Zendocrine Complex is on limited edition right now. So the only way you can get it is actually in the cleanse kit. So this is a great way to stock up on your lifelong vitality, so you have that on hand, and get everything that you need within that. You do have to order the cleanse kit from the US warehouse if you're for our Canadian listeners on this one, which is great. We have the opportunity to do that. You just click the little US flag in the corner there and walk through to do that. So that's a great support. And then you can, adding into your cleanse kit, anything from the BOGO deals tomorrow. If you're not doing the full BOGO box, you can get that all today, or in ordering the individuals if there's anything that you want to tap into for your cleanse on that. And I will prepare a little kind of summary of those BOGO oils and how they might be helpful in, or which ones will be really supportive for our cleanse. I know Adaptive is in there, which is an amazing oil. It's another one I often use as my oil massage blend in that. And it's a good, if you're looking at, soothing the nervous system, or just, got a lot of things on the go, any of those Vata imbalances. It's also a really good Kapha imbalance too. If you're just feeling low, lethargic, your energy's running down, it's a really good mental health kind of rejuvenator in that regard. It's been a wonderful blend for me to use that. Okay. So yeah, just tapping into that support of the group, the community. Feel free to post your questions down below in terms of what's going on. And I just went backwards again. Here's one last little quote to kind of send us off with today. Spring is here. Welcome to all the new beginnings, right? So just embracing that aspect of change. All right, so hope that you enjoyed that. I'm just going to step in just for a moment and just check our chat and see what we've got going on for within the group. Good. And feel free to keep posting your questions in there. I'll check back throughout the day to be answering them. And I'm going to stop our share in our live, and we'll just go into individual questions for those of you who are here on Zoom.